Well, hello everyone. Ogre27 Kane here today, and we're gonna do a review of the Dragoness Command of the Flame for Nintendo Switch. Let's do a brief overview and figure out what this game is all about. So this is a strategy tactical RPG with roguelike elements, very similar to something like Heroes of Might and Magic 2 or 3 if you're familiar with those old games. This game is very near and dear to me in my heart because I loved those games growing up, and it's the closest thing I've played since. The roguelike elements are kinda loose and they're not necessarily the best aspect of the game, but they serve their purpose. So let's get into gameplay. So the gameplay in this is very similar to Heroes of Might and Magic. It has a big map that you go and explore to collect resources and grow your army. You can either buy armies or you can recruit them. Now, you don't necessarily level up the armies through combat, but by growing additional armies you can combine them into 1-star and 2-star more powerful units. The goal is really to grow the most powerful army you can with the resources and everything that's given to you on each map, and to perform each objective. Now, some of the objectives you'll perform and beat the level just fine and move on to the next. Sometimes you'll run into a big dragon or something that just mauls you and destroys you. That's where the roguelike elements come into play, because when you die you go back to your hub city or hub town and you can build additions to it and grow different upgrades, if you will, to your characters. For example, you can expand the centaur's attack power and health, and same with your griffins. You can also grow at your facility in which you can enhance certain items and weapons too. There's also a selection of artifacts which you can choose to bring with you, which can enhance certain characters' abilities, spells, which can make certain strategies a little more viable in certain areas. Now, the world exploration and the story elements they give you are pretty cool, but I have to mention the combat is truly where this game shines, and all of the different variation with monsters, creature types, and upgrades and expansions really truly show off how fun this game is. This game has a lot of performance issues, and you're going to notice that throughout this entire video, but just be aware, the combat is super fun. So, I think we should move on to the next category, the story. The story in this game is about two dragon clans that essentially go to war with each other in an eternal struggle. Well, this is not really a problem as they're perfectly balanced throughout history, but eventually one of them learns some really dark arcane magic and starts to use it on the other one. As they begin manipulating the process and essentially taking over, it forces the other one into an Osh mode where it has to survive, if you will, and use all of the other creatures on the planet at its disposal and unify the world. This is where you come into play. As an elf, this dragon essentially enlists you into his army, and you're reborn over and over through his magic, in which you can utilize this strength to go from different areas around the country to recruit armies and grow their abilities and strengths to fight back. This essentially is like a kingdom builder type map, but it lends itself really well to the roguelike aspects, whereas if you die, you go back to the hub city in which you can utilize those resources for another attempt and grow your strategy. So let's hit graphics and animations now. So this section is really going to be the hardest one on this game, because frankly performance is absolutely abysmal. The graphical quality is not bad, it's pretty good for what a Switch game you would expect, but it really has a terrible frame rate, really bad frame rate. And it's something that I really feel is just optimization, as this PC port of this looks pretty good and is a lot smoother. I really feel like they should have just spent some more time on it and patched it up a little bit, because this game really has a lot of potential. And this doesn't bother me at all because I love strategy tactical RPGs and you really don't need a good performance to really play them. But if you're sensitive towards frame rate issues, this game will bother you as it cuts and jitters and has all kinds of weirdness all the time. It also has some weird aliasing where you can see a lot of edges look funny and some of the characters' voices cut in and out, and there's just a lot of weird stuff in general. But all of these things aside, if you like these kind of games, it's still absolutely worth trying. So let's do controls and audio. So let's talk audio. Now, the audio quality in this game is pretty bad, but the soundtracks and voice acting themselves are really good. So I'm going to give you an example of a battle and some voice acting here, and hopefully it'll help you decide whether or not it's something that you'd want to even invest in. For me, it doesn't bother me one bit, and I love all the presentation to this game, but it does sound kind of last gen and low quality, so here we are.
Nicely done, Commander. Your aid is greatly appreciated. Sending messages over long distances should be much easier now. Of course, your reward. Of course. Here you are.
Such a mixed bag, I really don't know what to make of it, but I do like it. So the controls themselves are pretty good and they function very well for what they're trying to do, but at the same time, your cursor is separated from your camera and so they don't stick together and it's easy to lose one or the other. That's really my only true gripe with the controls on that. But other than that, they're okay. So let's do combat now. So the combat in this, to me, is really where it shines. It's very reminiscent of Heroes in Might and Magic 2, if you've ever played that, even 3. It's really centered around your unit's strengths and weaknesses and how you utilize them. You have ranged units, you have long distance units, you have very large tanky units, you have spell heavy units, and even though you may employ one strategy which may work very well for a minute, it's not necessarily going to get you through everything. Each creature has its own little wrinkle to the combat, and it really forces you to engage yourself and think about how you want to win. My favorite strategy usually employs a couple of ranged units and a couple of tanks, and then a fast griffin unit for cleanup. If you can find a way to goad the enemy into you and get them to attack you, you can utilize certain maneuvers like pincers and being able to flank an enemy. These will help with great advantages with certain enemy and unit types, and it really does show the funnest aspect of this game. All these matches are bite-sized though, they won't take you longer than 5 or 10 minutes to get through, and it really just shows off the different aspects of it as you go from monster to monster. You may find that one strategy works really well for a while and then it completely crumbles in front of another. I absolutely adore this aspect because it constantly forced me to get better at the game and utilize monsters that I normally wouldn't. There are a ton of monsters in this game, and there's a ton of different variation to what they can do. You don't necessarily need to use a monster just to attack. It can become a spell creature or just even a tank or a blocking creature. There's a lot of really cool aspects to this, and there's a ton of strategy and tactical ability that you can come up with. So let's do conclusion now. So in conclusion, this game is a lot of fun, and it really does remind me of the best of Heroes in Might and Magic. Now, the performance is absolutely abysmal, and the story is not really anything that's too exciting either. So you need to weigh and measure whether these things matter to you, but if they don't, the digital price is around $20, and the physical Japanese import, which has English on the cartridge, which is what you're watching now, is around $35. So the game is still reasonably priced, and it has a ton of replay value. I personally can't find any information on how long to beat or an average playtime for most people, but I have well over 30 hours into this game, and there's still a lot for me to explore, so depending on how fast you play these, it'll be worth it. Well, thank you for watching today's video. It was a blast to make. I upload every single Monday. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day. This is Ogre27 Kane, signing out.
Matik has informed me of the happenings at Ents Grove. That corruption, it makes acquiring the knowledge left behind in the great library of Vervensel even more vital.